All right, Jabosai, good morning. Good morning. Let us begin such a schus Baruch Hashem to begin another week together. Learning about Basra, begin by thanking all of our sponsors for this morning share. To thank our annual Talmud Torah sponsor for Tafshin Pehei, the Tilsim Mishpacha of Eretz Yisrael, for dedicating all of the Shir Midrashos this year as a schus for Besoros Tavos for Am Yisrael. Our Talmud Torah sponsors for the month of Kislev, Habad Leinu Latova, Josh and Becker Friedman, and creation of the yard site of Josh's father, Harav Yisrael Yehuda ben Rav Rafal Zichron Livracha, for the safe return of our hostages and the security of all of our precious soldiers. Sammy and Malka Esterson in memory of their parents, Ludwig Stiefel, Sarah Stiefel, Hinda Esterson, and in memory of their dear friend, brave soldier, beloved husband and father, Naftali Gordon, Naftali Yona, Shemi Komdamo, Ben, Beatrice Miriam, and Daniel Yigal. We hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, all of the Neshamas will have an aliyah, the families in Nechama, and we thank our breakfast sponsor for this morning, Saeed and Simah in memory of Saeed's mother, Taji Bas Harav Meir Moshe Dayanim. We hope that in the merit of the brachas, of the beautiful achdus, that in Meretz Hashem, the Neshama has a Brose. Of course, as always, we dedicate our learning in the schus of our precious hostages. May HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Meretz Hashem, bring them home, B'shalom and B'karov, and in the schus of our holy soldiers, may HaKadosh Baruch Hu allow them to be successful, B'chol Ma'aseh Yedehem. With that, let us begin. We thank Rabbi Cement. Rabbi Cement is videoing us for Meretz Hashem for a small video for our upcoming crowdfunding campaign on December 17th through the 19th. By the way, if you have not yet signed up to become an ambassador, it is incredibly important and crucial to the success of this initiative. Meretz Hashem, December 17th through the 19th. Thank Rabbi Cement for being here. So, Chavra, be on your best behavior today. Please follow along in the Gemara. Also, make sure you're in the right Masechta, because if he zooms in on your Gemara and you're still in Bava Metzia, it's going to be very embarrassing for the shul. So please make sure. So today's daf is Bava Basra. We're nearing the end in Meretz Hashem. Kuf Samich Vav 166. We are picking up in Meretz Hashem on Kuf Samich Hey Amud Beis 165b, 3 lines up from the bottom. I gave you a little bit of homework last night. Shkach Rabbi Richter for giving Shabbos a share. And let's begin. Tanarabanan. So Gemara says as follows. We learned Dov. Shabbos says, remember again, we're going to be dealing today with some interesting cases that are really focused on ambiguity in the shtar. In other words, that if halacha l'maisa, you go ahead and you have something written in the document, but it's not clear what is written in the document. So halacha l'maisa, what do we do in such a scenario like that? So Gemara says as follows. For example, Dov. Let's say again, in the document it's written that Reuven lent Shimon money, and in it writes that he lent him gold. Lent him gold, or he owes him gold. So Dov. So both say, but what's the problem? What's the problem? It doesn't indicate how much. So what do you do in such a situation like that? So the Gemara says, "Ein pachos midinar zav." So Dov, by definition, is no less than 1 golden dinar. That's the halacha. Ein pachos midinar dav. Dav dinarin, vidinarin dav. What happens if it's written in the shtar? Reuven lent Shimon. Dinar, right? This is the lashon. Dav dinarin or dinarin dav. Ein pachos mishnei dinarin dav. That is no less, ultimately again, than two golden dinarin. Okay? Dav bidinarin. So I'll say all different expressions over here. What if it says dav bidinarin, gold in dinarin, ein pachos mibishnei dinarin kasef dav. That's the equivalent of Rabbi. That means it's no less than the equivalent of 2 silver dinarin worth of gold. Okay? Amar Mar. Dav ein pachos midina dav. So what do we say before? That if it just says in the shtar dav, dav is zav, dav ein pachos midina zav. So this is no less than 1 dinar. Which means again that in the shtar you would be able to collect no more than 1 dinar of zav. Emanaska. Maybe it means a bar of gold. Right? Or how do you know that it just says dove, it just says gold. So maybe gold just means a bar of gold. To which the Gemara says, the cost of matbeya, because it's written in the document of matbeya. It's written in the document, ultimately again a coin. So the Gemara says, top of Kuf Samich Vav 166a. I ve'ema priti. Maybe it's pruti, right? Priti bosa means again like prutos. Maybe it's the lowest denomination. Ve'ema priti. Priti didava lo of the inshi. So both say they would not. No one coined gold prutos, which makes sense. It doesn't make sense to go ahead and spend the money minting that denomination of coinage. Okay, so the Gemara says Zav b'dinarin. So what happens if the document says Zahav b'dinarin? So what is that? So the Gemara says, in pachos, maybe shnei dinarin kasef zahav. So that is no less than, so again, if the document just says zav b'dinarin, so that's not less from 2 silver dinarim worth of gold. Ve'ema dava pricha, maybe it represents some type of just like ground up gold, right? Like gold dust, to which the Gemara says, Ve'ema dava pricha, betray dinari dava kamar. No, because he used lashon of trade dinari dava. Okay, Amar Abaye. So we'll say the Gemara says, I'm sorry. Ve'ema dava pricha, betray dinari dava kamar. Maybe ultimately again we'll say when he uses the lashon, maybe what it means over here is gold dust worth of 2 dinarim of gold, or maybe it's 2 dinarim of gold worth of gold dust. To which the Gemara says, Amar Abaye, Yad balashtar ala tachtona. You're right, it may mean that. But here's the problem. The problem is that halacha l'maisa, when you have an ambiguous shtar, so remember again, the balashtar, the person who's holding the shtar is the person who has the right of collection. He has the lower hand. Meaning what? Because halacha l'maisa, again, because of the ambiguity, he's only able to collect essentially what is the lowest unit possible. Which makes sense, right? L'maisa again, because we'll say, remember again, Yad balashtar ala tachtona is another way of saying what? Hamotzi mechavera alavaraya, right? In other words, that remember, the balashtar wants to extract money. The problem is the balashtar has an ambiguous shtar. So, okay, these financial amounts which are left open-ended, all the balashtar is going to be able to collect is halacha l'maisa, the least, or I should say the lowest unit of currency that could be outlined in the shtar, that could be understood from this ambiguous statement. Good. Fine. So the Gemara goes right. So here, this is changed over here. The Bach changes this. So that goes to even changes this to Ihachi Reishanami Amaravashi. So that's what the parentheses are changed. Ihachi Amaravashi. So the Gemara says, skip the parentheses. Amaravashi Reisha the Kasav Dinari Seifa. Seifa the kas of dinarin. So Rashi wants to make the following suggestion, that the distinction in these cases, I will say, is that in the Reisha uses the lashon of dinari, and the Seifa uses the lashon of dinarin. Now we'll say, take a look at the Rashbam for just a moment. The Rashbam is almost right across. It is right across from Rashi. Reisha the kas of dinari, the mashma dinari zahav, aval dinarin stam mashma shel kesef. So it comes along Rav Ashi. Rav Ashi wants to make a very interesting distinction. Rav Ashi says the lashon of dinari is a reference to gold, and dinarin is a reference to silver. And that's why, again, so Rav Ashi understands that's the difference in interpretations over here between dinari and dinarin. So Reisha, the kas of dinari, the first part of the brayso is talking about dinari, and dinari means zahav, which means gold, and the Seifa is talking about dinarin, which is a reference ultimately again to silver. Uminat teimra dishani bein dinari lidinarin. So I asks the Gemara, so I don't understand, where do you get that from? Where do you get that from, that you make a distinction over here between dinari and dinarin? Where does that come from? So this is very interesting, fascinating Gemara. Decide, watch this. Haisha shahayu aleha safek chamish leidos. Safek chamish leidos, safek chamish zivos. So we'll say, so we know that halacha l'maisa, when a woman undergoes the birthing process, gives birth, so there's a whole series of karbanos that she has to bring for her purification. So let's say the following situation. Let's say you have a woman who has 5 safek leidos. Now what does it mean she has 5 safek leidos? That she 5 safek births. Take a look at the Rashbam for just a moment. Safek disnan. B'shili parakama decreases. Ha'isha sheyeshala safek chamish leidos. Chamish pamim hipila. Safek ruach safek vlad. So let's say a woman miscarries something, but she's not sure if what she miscarried was a fetus or maybe it was just a piece of flesh. So remember again, if it was a fetus, that would give her tumas leida. If it was just some other type of piece of flesh, then halacha l'maisa, there is no tumas leida involved over there. So let's say a woman who again, so she expelled something. She expelled something, suffix if it was a miscarriage, or just stam expelling something else from her body. Or suffix chamesh zivos. A woman is a suffix zava 5 times. How does that happen? Take a look at the Rashbam. Suffix chamesh zivos. Kigon mikol kolos leminyana verasa chamisha chadashim shloshim mitzuvim b'chol chodesh suffix b'mei nida suffix. Suppose if you remember again from our Maseches Nida days, or for those who learned Hilchos Nida in Smichas Chaver with us, so remember, the way we have Hilchos Nida today is very different than the way Hilchos Nida operates actually on a biblical level, right? The way it works is during the month, there are certain days that are Yemei Ziva, and certain days that are Yemei Nida. So for example, again, Rashi's quoting over here, that if a woman bleeds during the 11 days in between one Nida cycle and another Nida cycle, that's considered to be Zava. We're not going to, I know you really want to get into this today, but we're not. I'm sorry. I have to draw the line here, right? And don't push me on this, right? We're not going to get into this. But again, suffice it to say, you have a woman who bleeds, and the way the halacha works in its purest sense is, depending on what day of the month you bleed, a woman bleeds, will determine whether or not that's dam nida or dam ziva. Okay, now today, the truth is we have kind of combined all of this into one entity called nida. That's the way we use. In other words, our contemporary Hilchos Nida of like Shiva Nekiyim, 7 clean days. Remember again, Meikra Din, by Hilchos Nida, there is no such thing as Shiva Nekiyim, 7 clean days. 7 clean days is a function of Zava Gedola, but we kind of group all of this together into one thing that we call contemporary Hilchos Nida. But again, so let's say a woman bled and she's not, again, suffix, she's not sure which days of the month it was. So is she a Zava, or she bled for 3 straight days, which if it was during Zivos would have made her a Zava Gedola, right? Which would then require Shiva Nekiyim and Karbanos. So she's not sure. She's not sure again, did she bleed during the Zava days, during the Nida days? She's unsure. So again, you have a woman who has, and by the way, there's no magic to the number 5. That's just the example that the Gemara is giving. So she expelled something from her body 5 times, not sure. Was it a miscarriage? Not a miscarriage. She bled for consecutive days on multiple months, not sure. Is she a Nida or is she a Zava? They're both saying, this is another way of saying she is a suffix Karban. Right? Again, so the halacha over here is we're not sure she chayeves karbanos or not. So watch this. The Gemara says, so what does she do? She only brings one karban. She brings one karban for all of these sfeikos, and once she brings one karban, that one karban enables her to go ahead and eat of other karbanos, and the rest is not obligatory upon her. The rest is not obligatory upon her. Take a look at the Rashbam for just a moment. Mevia karban echad litar metum asa tor liola vitor lechatos ve'ino ne'echal dechatos of bala saving ino ne'echal kidnakul nas nisin. So what I say staloch is she brings one bird pair, right? Because the karbanos over here are birds. So she brings one bird pair, one turtle dove for an ola, one for a chatos. Now it's not consumed. Why is it not consumed? Because this is brought al safek. Okay, but she brings one bird pair, and that's it. She's good to go. It's good to go. Fine. So that's the first case. Hayu aleha chamesh leidos vados chamesh zivos vados. What happens if I will say she was a definitive zava, right? Or ultimately, again, she did give birth 5 times. Right? So now she's chayeves these 5 bird pairs, right? Because remember, again, a woman is chayeves a bird pair for every single birth and for every single zivos. So what's the halacha? Mevia karban echad va'ocheles bizvachim v'ashar le'achova. So it's actually very interesting. If a woman, you could have a situation like this, right? A woman had 5 children, right? A woman had 5 children, and whatever, she just never got around to bringing her karbanos. Or she became a zava 5 times, and she never got around to bringing her karbanos. So we'll say, so now, here's what's interesting about this. Halacha l'maisa, she's chayeves 5 bird pairs, right? Which makes sense. But as soon as she brings one of them, ultimately, again, she is permitted to partake of karbanos. Now, what's the logic behind that? But she's chayav as 5. So why should she be able to partake of karbanos if she's chayav as 5? Right? Why should she be purified enough to be able to partake of karbanos if in fact she has 5 distinct sacrificial obligations upon her? So it's interesting that Rashbam highlights. He says something fascinating. He says it's kind of like Tuma, like going to the mikvah. A person could be chayiv 5 tevilos, right? 5 immersions. But essentially, at what point do you become ritually pure? When do you become ritually pure? When you do the first one. Now you may still have more obligations upon you, but once you do the first one, pretty much you're good to go. So the Gemara is positing that the same thing kind of happens with karbanos as well. A woman may have an obligation to bring 5 bird pairs. That may be true, but halacha l'maisa, once she brings one of them, then ultimately again that entitles her to partake of sacrificial offerings. So let's look at that again. All she needs to do is bring upon her 1 bird pair, and ultimately, again, that allows her to eat karbanos. Vashar aleh chova. But the rest, obviously, are obligatory upon her. Take a look at the Rashbam for just a moment. The Rashbam says over here, Vashar aleh chova. Okay, going shiyod la achamalos aval alalid shebesok melos niftar bekarbon echad al shnei umazas. Fine. So let's say that's the halacha. Okay, so that's the halacha. Now, what does this have to do with anything? Anything. Okay, so let's see. The Gemara is supposed to get ready for this. This is a ridiculously amazing story. Maisa va'amdu kinim b'yushalayim b'dinari zav. So we'll say one time it happened that the price of bird pairs shot through the roof. Hate it when this happens, right? So the prices went crazy. Now, why did the prices go crazy? Why did the prices go crazy? Supply and demand. Supply and demand. So Baruch Hashem, so demand was high, supply was short, so the price of bird pairs went up, right? Amdu kinim b'dinare zahav. So we'll say, so a bird pair was going for gold dinari. Now, Rabbi say, Amar Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, Hamon Hazeh. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel sees this, and Rabbi say, this is obviously problematic. Why is this problematic? Because bird pairs is one of those things that pretty much everyone's going to need. Because Kanai Nahara, people are having children, and zivos was also a common occurrence, right? So Lamaisi, you're talking about something that people are going to need. So what happened? Rabbi Shimon Gamliel gets up and he says, Hamon Hazeh, right? Hamon Hazeh, I swear by the Beis HaMikdash. Swear by the Beis HaMikdash, Im Alin Halayla, I am not going to sleep, Ad Shiu B'dinarin, until I bring down the price of bird pairs to dinarin. We'll say, what are dinarin? What are dinar? Silver. We'll say, by the way, pause here for just a second. Mission accomplished. Right? Remember again, what did Rav Ashi say? Rav Ashi said, whenever we talk about dinari are gold, and dinarin are silver. The Gemara says, how do you know that? Here it is. Here it is, right? The bird pairs we're going for dinari. And here it has a qualifier, right? This is dinari zav. And Rabbi Shimon Gamliel says, I'm not going to sleep until I bring the price down to dinarin. Silver pieces, silver coins. So what did he do? Nichnas lebeizin v'limad. So Rabbi Shimon Gamliel says he went into the base medrash. He clapped on the beam and he said, Chevra, I want to remind everyone of an important halacha. What's the halacha? Aisha shahayu aleh chamesh leidos vados. If a woman gave birth to 5 children and therefore Baruch Hashem is obligated in 5 bird pairs, so or chamesh zivos vados mevia karban echad vaocheles bizvachim ve'ein hashar aleha chova. Shmuel said the halacha is, it's not halacha. The halacha is if a woman gives birth 5 times, when becomes a zava 5 times, so technically speaking, she's obligated in 5 different bird pairs. Rabbi Shimon says, let's remember the halacha. The halacha is, all she needs to do is bring 1, and the rest are optional. The rest are optional. So we'll say, what did he do in that moment? Now, by the way, I want to point out, he didn't just make up this halacha. This was his shita throughout. It obviously got a little bit marginalized. And again, people are trying to be machmir. It's a beautiful thing. They want to bring all these bird pairs. But he comes along, he sees this is having a problem in the marketplace. So what does he do? He introduces his halacha. He says, Chevra, if a woman is obligated 5 birth pairs, 5 births, 5 zivos, you really only have to bring 1. Can you bring the rest? Sure, but they're not obligatory. So we'll say, what happened? Amud Beis, get ready. Amud Beis, va'amdu kinin bo bayom berivasayim. And I will say, what happened? That day, amazingly enough, the prices of bird pairs dropped to $0.25 of a silver dinar. So we'll say, so by the way, what do you see from here? First, true. Jews really control everything, right? So I just want to point this out. Before Shariah, we do control the prices, right? We control everything. So literally, again, one little shear, one little clap on the bima, one little halacha, and the price of bird pairs plummeted, which of course is in general interest, because halacha l'maisa, again, now everybody was able to afford it. So we'll say again, great story. The point of that story for us was to show Rav Ashi's point that dinari are gold coins and dinar are silver coins. We'll say I want to tell you a tremendous Musar Haskell from this story. Tremendous Musar Haskell. If you notice, what happened? Rav Shimon Gamliel saw a problem. He saw a problem. And what did he do when he saw a problem? What did he do? So number one, he took action. I will say, so many times in life, we see problems. We see things that are broken, and what do? We crack, right? Or we feel bad, or we complain, and then what? And then we just move on. The Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh says in Pirkei Avos, the Baal Shem Tov says that the Ribono Shel Olam, whatever you see in this world, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants you to see it. And whatever you hear in this world, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants you to hear it. Why? Because if you hear it and you see it, Hashem wants you to do something about it. So Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, the godless of this story was, he saw there was a problem. Again, he's not the only rabbi in town. There's plenty of rabbanim, right? It's everybody's problem. The beautiful Gemara, what does the Gemara say? Keder dvei shutvi, a pot owned by 2 people. What does the Gemara say? Lo kariri, v'lo chamimi. Never gets cold, but it never really gets hot. You know why? Because it's always someone else who's going to do it. Reuven will take care of it, right? And Shimon says, and Reuven says, Shimon's going to take care of it. There's always someone else. So often in life, we go through life and there's always someone else to take care of you. Now, the good news is, you're right. Most times there is always someone else. But don't live life like that. You see something that's broken, you see something that's problematic, roll up your sleeves and do something about it. If you saw it, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants you to see it because He wants you to try to figure out something. It's the godless of the story. Rav Shimon Gamliel could have also gone ahead and just taken his Gemara, go to the base medrash and do his thing. But he saw there's a problem and he answered the call. But there's one more piece. I will say, if you notice what he says, he doesn't just fix the problem. Instead, what does he say in the story? Hamon hazeh im olin halayla. I am not going to bed until this problem is fixed. Because there's a problem. What's the problem? Sometimes what happens in life is we decide we're going to take care of things, but we don't put a deadline on the solution. If you don't put a deadline on the process, chances are it won't get done. It's the same idea for everything in life. After 120, one of the questions that HaKadosh Baruch Hu asks us is, Kavata itim laTorah, which means what? Did you set aside time to learn? If you notice again, the question is, now I would have thought, what should be the question? Lamarta Torah. Did you learn Torah? That's not the question. Kavata itim Torah means, did you set aside a specific time every single day to learn Torah? Now why is that important? Isn't the ikr to learn? No, because we know the way it works. If something is not built into your schedule, if you do not give yourself a deadline, this is what I do, and this is what I do it for, and this is how long, then again, it may happen 7 out of 10 times, maybe even 10 out of 10 times. Not 9 out of 10 times. It's not happening 10 out of 10 times. But if you give yourself a schedule, you say, this is what I do, this is my day, this is how it works, then ultimately, again, the probability of success is so much greater. The godless of the Shimon Gamliel says, you know what, I have a really busy day today. I know bird pairs are really expensive today. All right, I'm going to get to this a week from Tuesday, Amir Hashem. I have an opening in my schedule. I'm not going to sleep tonight until the problem is fixed. Sometimes in life, it's not just enough to say, okay, I'm going to work on it, but I'm going to work on it now. I'm going to work on it. Now again, granted in life, there are times you can't drop everything and necessarily deal with a particular issue. But a lot of times in life, it's not enough just to have the resolve to work on it. I have to work on it now. I'm saying this, how often does it happen that there are so many problems that we have in our lives? Hopefully not so many problems in our lives, but all of us have challenges in life. And the truth is, we know what they are, and we're even committed to working on it. What's the problem? I'm just not committed to working on it now. So when you're not committed to working on it now, by the way, when does it get done? I'll let you know when I get to it, right? Because I haven't gotten this. It's been going on for years. Right? But whatever, I just haven't gotten. I'm on it. I'm definitely on it, right? It's important to me. I'm going to get to it as soon as I can. Sometimes you just have to say, I'm not going to sleep until this problem is resolved, until I work this out. Incredible. All right, let's go weiter. Says the Gemara, so remember, now we're at the end of the Mishnah. So the end of the Mishnah read as follows. The end of the Mishnah said, that if halacha l'maisa kasaba milamala mana umilamata masayim. If you have a shtar and the shtar is contradictory, how so? In the beginning of the shtar it said that Ruvain lent Shimon a mana, and in the end of the shtar it said 200 mana. Right? If it said $1,000 in the beginning, and then it said $2,000 in the end, right? So I'll say, so what do you do in this kind of case where there's a contradiction between a line in the beginning of the shtar and the end of the shtar? So the Mishnah outlined the principle: Hakol holich achar hatachton. Everything goes by what's written last. The Gemara says, so if that's the case, why even write anything in the beginning of the shtar? If you're going to follow any of that which is written in the end of the shtar, why not go ahead and just forget about the top of the shtar? I'm just reading the Mishnah. Im kein lama kosin es ha'elyon, shem timchak os achas min ha'tachton, yilmad min ha'elyon. No, because sometimes if there's a mistaken erasure on the bottom of the shtar, we can learn it out from the top of the shtar. So essentially what the Mishnah is saying is like this: where there is a contradiction between the information in the top and the information on the bottom, we'll go with the information that's in the bottom. Right? So if that's the case, why is the top important? So the top is important because if for some reason there's something missing, let's say there's a missing letter or something in the bottom, we can learn that out from the top. So we'll see what this means in just a moment. Let's analyze. Says the Gemara, Kov Samech Vav on days 166b, 2 lines down. Tanabanan. Yilamid hatachto min ha'elyon ba'os achas aval lo b'shtei osios. Shabbos say you can learn out what's written on the bottom from the top, as long as you're only missing one letter but not 2 letters. Meaning, kigon chanan mechanani va'anan me'anani. So for example, let's say on the bottom line of the shtar, it refers to the borrower as chanan, right? But on the top part of the shtar, it refers to him as chanani, right? Or anan on the bottom and anani. So then we'll say, what can we attribute it to? We can attribute to that to scribal error, and he just forgot a yud. So in other words, it's okay. It's within what we'll call normative margin of error if one letter is missing. Right? So the full name was written on the top, then a partial name was written on the bottom. Okay, we could attribute that to scribal error. The Gemara says, fine. Look at the Rashbam for just a moment. The Rashbam says, Dilma atachton min ha'elyon ba'os achos, shechasim min atachton kigon chanan mechanani, anan me'anani, aval lo b'shtayim, kigon chen or chan mechanani, an me'anani. So this is, for example, so essentially, if you're missing one letter from the name on the bottom of the shtar, right? Fine, it's still usable. We could attribute that ultimately again to scribal error. The Gemara says, but not 2 letters. So, for example, if the top line it says that Reuven lent Chanani, right, $1,000, and then on the bottom line it just says Chan. Right? So it's missing 2 letters, then already that's going to be an invalid shtar. That's not going to be good. So you can be missing up to 1 letter, but not 2 letters. So the Gemara says, I don't understand. Why can't you be missing 2 letters? What's wrong with 2 letters? So the Gemara says, Dilma misrami shem bein arba osios v'havile palgi d'shmei. Because here's the problem. Because if you're missing 2 letters, let's say you have a name that's made up of 4 letters, that means you could be missing up to half of the name. Half of the name. The Gemara says, I don't understand. Well, if that's the concern, that you can't be missing up to half of the name, well, you could also have a name of 2 letters, right? Shem, Cham, Dun, God. All right, you get the point. So in other words, you could have. So again, if it's an issue that missing one letter is problematic, then halacha l'maisa again. If missing half of the name is problematic, so then even if you're missing one letter, that should be problematic because you could have a name that's made up of two letters. To which the Gemara says, no. Here's the issue. The Gemara says, "Ihachi she'os achos nami dilma mitzrayim b'shem ben shtei osios v'alei palgi d'shma elo shtei osios hainu taima dilma mitzrayim b'shem ben shalosh osios v'havile ruba d'shma." So I say, no, what we're concerned about is like this. Essentially, let me tell you the principle, then we'll plug it in. The principle is that we are okay with scribal error as long as the bottom part of the shtar is not missing the majority of the name. Once you're missing the majority of the name, then that compromises the integrity of the shtar. If you're missing up to half of the letters of the name, we can still attribute that to a normative scribal error. Majority of the name, so therefore again, if you're missing one letter, the most you're missing is what? The most you're missing is what? Half of the name. Right, that's the most, right? Because again, every name requires at least two letters. Every name requires at least two letters. And Shabbat say, it's interesting, by the way, right? There's only one name that is ever represented by one letter, and that's the Ribono Shel Olam, right? And again, even that, it's not an actual name, right? Just like a hey, right? It's descriptive, but only HaKadosh Baruch Hu can be described in one letter. Man, by definition, always requires at least two letters, a name of a person, right? Why is that? So, you know what I remember again, so... letters in the Aleph base, right? Like we say, Shishim Ribos Osios Batorah, 600,000 letters in the Torah, 600,000 in the Shamas. The letters represent Klal Yisrael. The letters, right? Each letter represents, the idea is a Yid, a Jew, can never exist by himself. We need each other. See, even in my name, there's no such thing, right, as a Yiddish nomen, right? There's no such thing as a Jewish name that just has one letter. It's not possible, because one letter represents you don't need anything or anyone else to exist. The Ribono Shel Olam has that. HaKadosh Baruch Hu needs nothing else. But each of us, by definition, always needs someone else in order to be able to be mashlemas, in order to be able to fully self-actualize. So again, therefore, the Gemara says like this: so if we're missing up to half of the letters in the name, we can attribute that to normative scribal error, and we're good to go. So therefore, again, up to one letter is fine. The problem is once you're missing two letters, what's the concern? The concern is that you could have a name that is made up of three letters. If you're missing two letters, then what? You're missing the majority of the name. And once you're missing the majority of the name, then halacha l'maisa, that really compromises the integrity of the shtar. Say, Rabbi, this is an important piece of halacha l'maisa. So therefore, again, we're writing the name in the top part of the shtar, writing the name in the bottom part of the shtar. And halacha l'maisa, essentially what's happening over here is as follows. If you're missing up to one letter, then you're fine. More than one letter, up to two letters or more, problematic. Why? Because two letters could potentially represent the majority of the name, and if you're missing the majority of the name in the document, that just compromises the entire integrity of the shtar. Amar Bava. So Bava says as follows. So we'll say, so what about not a shtar? What about not a name? What about if there's other information that's different in the document, not name information, but just different information in the shtar? For example, Amar Bava, Pshitali, Safal Milamala, Kafal milamata. So we'll say, let's say again, in the beginning of the shtar it says that Reuven sold Shimon a safal, right? Safal means like a utensil, a bowl. So the beginning of the shtar says he sold him a bowl, and in the end of the shtar it says kafal. Kafal means, we'll say, a garment. Kafal means something that you fold. So therefore, again, it could ultimately again mean a garment of some sort. So the Gemara says, so what do you do in this scenario over here? So in the beginning it says safal, first part of the shtar says safal, and then at the end of the shtar it says kafal. So what's the halacha? Hakol holich achar tachton. So we'll say, so that's our principle in the Mishnah, right? The principle in the Mishnah says everything follows the end, right? There's always a review at the end of the shtar, and therefore whatever is written in the shtar becomes authoritative. Fine. Bayra Papa, listen to this. Kafal milamala, the safal milamata, mai. What if it's reversed? That is very interesting. What if it says, so it says kafal in the top of the shtar and safal in the end of the shtar? What do you do there? Now what's the shaila? We just said everything goes after the end of the shtar. Watch this. Mai. Mi chayshinan l'zvuv olo. We'll say ultimately again, are we choshesh for a fly? Now what does that mean? See, watch this. Kafal is written with a kaf, right? What could have happened over here? What could have happened over here is, what if a fly got in there before the ink fully dried and messed with the leg of the kuf? Well, what happens if you mess with the leg? If you mess with the leg of a kuf, right, and you smear the ink? What could it be made into? A samach. A samach. So are we choshesh for that or not? So again, I will say, you hear the distinction? If it says safal in the beginning and kafal in the end, so again, there's obviously a mistake over there. Which one do you go after? You go after, ultimately, again, you go after what's written on the bottom line. But if it's written kafal in the beginning and safal in the end, or should we be concerned that maybe a fly got into the ink, messed with the base of the kuf and the top part of the shtar, and made it look like a safa? So what's going on over here? So the Gemara says again, so kafal milamala, safa milamata, mi chayshin l'zvuv olo. Do we have to be concerned? Take a look at the Rashman for just a moment. Mi chayshin l'zvuv shechisa ragla shalkuf v'naase samich ubahan nami yilmod me'elyon. So again, do we have to be concerned that maybe a fly got into the ink and caused, right, and messed with the base of the kuf and made it into a samich or not? To which the Gemara says, Teiku. Now, what do you do in a teiku situation like this? So the Rashban points out over here, the hamotzi mechavero alav haraya, the chayvin the mistapik dina lebei dina, hech yotziu miyad hamachzik. So essentially, again, this is going to be hamotzi mechavero alav haraya. And this is so essentially whoever's in possession of the item is the muchsak, and again, the burden of proof is going to be on the extractor. Okay, interesting. The Rashbam then goes on to say why this is not Maman Amutal B'Safek, but that's a different discussion. I just want to point out what a tremendous Musahaska. It's just saying that, isn't it incredible? A fly has the ability to make such a dramatic difference, right? A fly gets in the ink, and a fly can make the difference between a safal and a kafal. Once you've seen a safal and a kafal, again, it could be a lot. I've never seen a bowl and a garment. I was saying that's just a fly. That's just the fly, right? The fly just flies around, but again, if it gets into the wrong ink, it could go ahead and make such a difference. But let's say if a fly, and by the way, I just want to point out, that fly is making a difference in the lives of two people, right? Reuven and Shimon, the people in the transaction. If a fly could make a difference, then Allah has kama v'kama, the difference that we have the ability to make in this world as well. And I will say, it's always incredible. I always find the most amazing things is what Daf Yomi, what the Daf gives us. It's Sunday, it's the beginning of the week, Baruch Hashem, a whole week ahead of us. And sometimes 1 week just bleeds into the next and we forget that we have the ability to be agents of change. And we have the ability to really go ahead and make a difference in this world. And you see these two Gemaras, or Shimon Gamliel and the fly, right? We'll say, look at these two mice. They are so beautifully linked. They're both stories of entities, of making a difference. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel is a story of premeditated change. He decides to make a change. The fly is just kind of haphazard change. But at the end of the day, the common denominator is everyone in this world has the ability to affect change. To affect change in our own lives, to affect change in our family lives, to affect change in our career, to affect change in our kehillah. We all have the ability to affect change. So often we go through life like a spectator sport. We sit on the sidelines and we allow other people to play the game while we just go ahead and look on. And without realizing, we're not spectators. All of us are players, and we're important players. We're quarterbacks in the games of our life. We make the plays happen. We choreograph everything that's around us. You just have to take the ball. You got to take the reins. You have to decide to suit up, get off the sidelines, and actually participate. And not like a fly. Not like a fly, because a fly just flies around. He lands here, he does this, like Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, who mamish takes the reins and does something. It's just incredible. Okay, let's go back to a little bit further. Another story. Okay, so I'll say this is interesting. There was a shtar, right? Reuben lent Shimon money, and in the shtar it was written that Reuben lent Shimon 600 shismea v'zuzah, and a zuz. What's the problem with the shtar? It doesn't say 600 what. 600 what? In other words, we'll say, again, if it would have said shis mea v'zuz 601, but it says shis, the way it's written, shis mea 600 and a zuz. So the zuz is a separate denomination of currency than whatever the 600 is. So I know that Ruvain lent Shimon 600 of something and one zuz. So the problem is, we'll say, what is it? What's enforceable over here? The Gemara says, Shalcha Rav Shar. Now we'll say, now by the way, what I know from the beginning, so Reuven's holding the shtar, he wants to collect from Shimon. What I know from the outset, what is Reuven going to be able to collect? What is he going to be able to collect? Right, the one zuz. So certainly the one zuz is enforceable, and certainly again 600 of something, and whatever this something is going to be the lowest possible unit of meaningful currency, right? Why? Because again, right? So that I know this going into this. So the shayla is, what is this? So here we go. Shalcha Rav Sharvia Kamei Da Abaye. I will say, by the way, you think to yourself, how did this happen? How did this happen, right? Reuven lent Shimon money, right? And what happened? They wrote 600 without the unit of currency. How does that happen? But how does that happen, I will say? Mistake, right? Sofer made a mistake. But what else? Sofer made a mistake, and no one's paying attention. No one's paying attention. The Sofer's not paying attention. Reuven's not paying attention. Shimon's like, hey, I'm not paying attention either, right? In other words, Shimon's the borrower, right? So obviously, again, he really doesn't have to. But I'll say, what do you see from here? See, we go through life, and sometimes we're just not paying attention. We're not paying attention. Like, I'm present. Everybody's there. Everybody's around the table. Everybody's around the table, right? The Sofer is writing it. Reuven's the lender. And Shimon's there, and he's giving the money. Everyone's there, but they're not attentive. It's not enough just to show up in life. It's not enough just to, these Gemaras are all related. It's not enough just to suit up in life. You have to be attentive. You have to live life with your eyes wide open. You have to be engaged. You can't be distracted. Say, like those signs, they have good wording for it. The New Jersey Turnpike, when they're telling you like not to text and drive, they've all have like these, I don't know, there's like a, don't Google it now. Whatever, don't Google it. Don't get distracted. So whatever they're like, isn't it incredible? Like, okay, so they have to tell us, don't text and drive. Like, don't. I say, but it's true. Like, you think about it, we're so distracted. We're always distracted. When was the last time you had a conversation with someone, and then you could not recall what they said, right? Why? Because you're just busy doing other stuff. Usually it's the person you're married to, right, or whatever. It's like, right. So I'm just like, I'm distracted. We're so used to, we're always doing other stuff. We're always doing other stuff. Which, on one hand, we like to think that we're more productive because we're multitasking. Not really. We're not really more productive. Actually, the general overall quality of everything that we do just is really diminished. Everything is diminished because I'm really, Rav Kook, Rav Yitzchak Cohen Kook, had a beautiful line. He said, when you learn, learn. When you work, work. When you eat, eat. And when you sleep, sleep. Rav Kook was saying, just be present in whatever you're doing. Right? People think like, when I'm working, I'm going to happen a couple of moments of learning. No. When you work, especially if you're working for someone, you're on the clock, they deserve your time. The Rosh Hashanah doesn't deserve your time during that time. You're on the clock, work. But when you're learning, learn. And when you're davening, daven. But you know what ends up happening, right? When we're davening, we're trying to learn. And when we're learning, we're already starting to work. And when we're trying to happen some learning. So the whole day, whatever it is that I'm doing, I'm always trying to do something else. Instead, if I just focused on what I was doing when I was doing it, the experience would be meaningful and enriching and impactful, and then I can move on to the next experience, and to the next experience, and to the next experience after that. I say, do you know when I think humanity took a real downturn? When you were able to get Wi-Fi on planes. And I say, right, think about this just only, and now by the even Eretz Yisrael, right? To go to Eretz Yisrael, there's Wi-Fi. Eretz Yisrael was like the last safe haven, right? That flight, that El Al flight, when there was no Wi-Fi, and you knew that for 10 hours, no one could reach you. Know this? I'll say now, I'm telling you, I get WhatsApp phone calls. We get WhatsApp phone calls now, because There's no time. There's no time. We're always connected to a million different things. But again, how does this happen? That someone writes a shtar and there's no denomination of currency written in it? No one's paying, and no one caught this. The sofer didn't catch it, the lender didn't catch it, I don't know, maybe the borrower cared or didn't care, but no one caught it. And as a result, ultimately, again, it's so important to whatever we're doing in life to be present, to be attentive, to be plugged in. Everything in life becomes so much more meaningful, impactful, enriching, and enjoyable when we're actually present in the moment. Let's finish off the case. The Gemara says, so what happens? So it says 600, says 601 zuz. I know we've got the one zuz, but I don't know what the denomination of currency is. So what happened? So they sent, the Gemara says, Shalcha Rav Sharvia Kamei Dabaye, Shismea Isteri Vizuza, Aldama Shismea Priti Vizuza. So both say, so what is it? Maybe it's 600 Isteri. Now both say, now, an istira is the equivalent of a sela, which is the equivalent of dalid zuzim, 4 zuzim. So maybe it means 600 istira, or maybe not. Maybe it means 600 prutos. Right? Again, both sides, it's quite a spread. It's quite a spread. So Amrle, dol priti, dol ksi bishtari, dasuki maskin lahu, umashvi lahu, sorry, let's go, let me read it slower. Amrle, so he said to him, no. First of all, it's not prutos. It's for sure not prutos. No one would ever write a shtar for 600 prutos. Why? Dol kasi bishtara, dasuki maskin lahu. Because generally, both say, when you have a lot of prutos, what do people do with a lot of prutos? They go and essentially, they exchange it, or, what's the right word? Yeah, exchange it, or would transactionally, what is it? Convert it. They would convert it to a higher level of currency. So again, they would combine that amount. Top of Kuf Samech Zayin. Or also, by the way, I just want to point out, we started on Kuf Samech Beis. I don't want to, whatever. It's not important, but I just want to point it out. Right? So Umashvi Lahu. It's always, I always like it when I'm a little bit ahead, right? Because it'll fall behind by like 2 minutes. Umashvi Lahu Zuzi. So what would happen? A person would never go ahead and write a shtar for 600 prutos. Instead, what he would do is they would convert prutos into zuzim. So it can't be prutos. Somai amrit shismia isteri vizuza. So maybe halacha lemaisa, it's 600 isteri and 1 zuz. Maybe that's what it is. To which the Gemara says, Yad balashtar ala tachtona. So ultimately, again, you're right. So the truth is, we'll say the way we interpret this is that it would refer to 600 istira, because istira, which essentially is a sela, is going to be the smallest denomination of normative currency. But maybe it's more. Maybe it is more. But yad balashtar ala tachtona. Essentially, this becomes a motzi mechaber alav haraya. And therefore, again, I'll say what we do is we know that he's owed the 1 zuz. We know that he's owed the 1 zuz. Now, what we also know is, we'll say, we know that it's not zuzim. How do we know that the 600 is not zuzim? How do we know that? Because otherwise it would have just said 601 zuz. The fact that the zuz is reckoned separately indicates to us that the 600 is not zuzim. So if it's not zuzim, essentially what we do is we do the unit of currency 1 step above a zuz. What's the unit of currency above a zuz? An istira. But maybe it's something else. Maybe it's much larger. Okay, yad balashtar ala tachtona hamotzi mechaver alavaraya. It might be, but then it's upon the balashtar to prove that it is a unit of currency above the zuz. And therefore, both say in this kind of case, halacha lemaisa, Reuven will be entitled to collect from Shimon 600 istira plus 1 zuz. If Reuven claims that no, the loan was for a much higher amount, he can make that claim. But amotzi mechaver alav haraya, yad bal hashtar ala tachtona, and the burden of proof is upon him. Now let's say we'll stop over here for today. Shkoyach. All right, Chevron Zoom. Have a great day, everyone. All right, Eretz Yisrael coverage. Just a reminder, Miras Hashem, Wednesday afternoon at 12:45 in the old city of Yerushalayim. I posted it on the WhatsApp chat at the Wolaski home. And Miras Hashem will be streaming it back to America. We're looking forward.